calling to you from beyond the veil that separates the living and the dead. You fools, there was a sign about that. The sign specifically told you not to do that.
Earlier in the year, I played through a bunch of Next Fest demos, and I can safely say I wasn't expecting Mavis Beacon's Tales from the Crypt to be one of my favorites. Mainly because it's a typing game, and I thought those might have already peaked with Typing of the Dead. The difference is that this is a slow dungeon crawler until the fighting starts. Even then, while it's not the recommended one, there is a turn-based option for combat, so it still doesn't have to be that frantic. The story itself is an easy setup. You've been woken by the Cryptmaster, who wants to reach the dungeon's surface. And like some other dungeon games, here you play a party of characters. A warrior, an assassin, a bard, and a sea witch. Which is kind of like a regular witch, but she throws more fish. But like any good dungeon, there are plenty of obstacles, weirdo characters, and other side things to get past. And throughout all of it, the Cryptmaster is your constant companion, asking what you're up to, reacting to what you type in, and trying to be helpful at 20 questions and other riddles.
No, I don't like that.
Mavis Beacon was never real, and the Cryptmaster feels like more of a genuine educator, to the point that if you avoid the game's tutorials to try and softlock yourself, he calls you out on it.
All you had to do was type the word hit. I hinted, and then I outright instructed you. I even used 2 separate tooltips.
He follows this up with a step-by-step guide on how to refund the game.
And then click on support. There will be an option to ask for a refund, and you should select "the game is too hard" as your reason for wishing to do so.
If you couldn't tell already, he's the soul of this game and one of the actual designers, which does make it feel extra appropriate, and the game was made by a very small team. This is one of those games that, due to the nature of it, I don't want to show a whole ton. My first run took me about 10 hours, and there were still quite a few secrets and leads that I never followed up on. There's a good amount going on.
I never thought rats would be capable of an erection on that scale.
Right, visuals. To go for the obvious, the choice of black and white is an interesting one. It's already unusual for a movie to go that route nowadays, but for a 3D game, that's even more rare. Typically they might have some color for emphasis, or a way to bring it back. Here, Cryptmaster is fully committed to the bit, and where dungeon games can have a problem with areas looking too similar, now you're watching it through Mr. Ed vision. The thing is, it really works here for a few reasons. For one, the environments have the work put in to make them stand out from each other. There is always a grungy, damp cave undercurrent to everything, but the locations still feel distinct and not copy and pasted from each other, which again can be one of the biggest pitfalls in this genre, and the good ones tend to avoid it. Beyond that, the style works well for the idea. After all, your entire party is undead, brought back to a cursed life by a speak and spell necromancer. So it gives them a white bony look, and thematically, that's how they see the world too. How it uses that extreme contrast in the environments and its characters is great. It really accents fine lines, glowing lights, and other detail. The Cryptmaster himself is almost always bathed in shadow to where he's nearly part of it. And once you're used to that, it's hard to imagine him in actual color. It also feels like the game is capturing a very specific art style. It could be they're pulling from some graphic novel or something else I don't know about, but I think it has to be they're drawing from 70s and 80s D&D artwork. People still play with the art style today, and everything in the game's line work just screams it. It's also a good tonal fit since while the game is jokey, it's usually drier humor. Rather than have everything being super exaggerated or hyper colorful, it instead looks like the Turbo Nerd drawings from a first edition D&D rulebook. It does look more mundane, but it's grounded. It's having a DM who's clearly put thought and effort into the world building, but they'll still crack jokes. If they come up with a bit that's entertaining or fun, we'll just roll with it, but the world itself isn't overly wacky. It's a balance that's kind of hard to explain if you've never played a tabletop game like that, but this game nails it.
According to this book, if you suspect a lake is harboring mermen, you can simply cast a gentrify spell and count the top hats as they float to the surface. Remarkable.
There can be some jank to the character animations, especially moving through the world or fighting, but it's the kind of game where it feels like that kind of thing doesn't matter much. Besides, as you may have suspected, this is a very audio-centric game. The main cast is great, especially the Cryptmaster of course, But you can also run across skulls which will offer souls in exchange for answering a riddle or logic puzzle. These sound like they're voiced by random friends and family, so the mixing is all over the place, but it's cute. Of course, going back to the star, he has an insane amount of responses. And apparently it was all done manually, so I fear how many hours this man spent in front of a dictionary just reading stuff out. A surprising amount has context too, like guessing an object in a box, which is a helmet, and if you say a shield, he'll go, it's metal and protects you, but it's not quite that. Seeing how far a tangent can go with him is a big part of the game's fun.
Ka-ching.
As for the ambient sound effects, they're pretty good. A large amount of it is just howling wind, but it's good howling wind. The soundscape is decent enough on its own that it could have carried the game, but Cryptmaster has some interesting music. There's a variety that I would not expect from a monochrome dungeon crawler. A lot of the battle music has guitars at the forefront, and when you hear the main theme, which is mysterious and creepy, you could be expecting more of that Halloween ambience, but no. There is some of that, some darker synth tracks that wouldn't sound out of place in something like The Legend of Grimrock. At least, if that game had music beyond its great main theme. Some of the tracks are more rock-influenced with the guitars, others are keyboard music that sounds straight out of later Ultima games, and it even goes into moody jazz sometimes. Then some music, who knows. It keeps you guessing. As for the rest of the game, it's Haunted Wordle with some extra steps. Since your entire party is undead, their brains are more fried than trying Horse Tranquilizer in Philly, which means they have the khaki pants of role-playing games, amnesia. They may have been great heroes in life, but they've lost their memories and their skills. As you play through the game, you unlock more of them, and just type them out to use them. Enemies will drop a letter of their name, which fills out the next thing to unlock. But there are also other ways of collecting letters. When you open chests, the Cryptmaster isn't sure what's in them because his brain is kind of fried too. So you play 20 questions to help him recall the word, and if you get it, you loot every single letter of it, which is usually a big step ahead. The same goes for the riddles and other brain teasers you run across, and there are a few other ways to get individual letters too. So character progression is all about guessing what the next skill or memory is, and the more letters you have, the easier that is. You can only unlock them linearly, and each character has dozens of skills, so you're unlikely to unlock them all by the time you hit the endgame. Especially since the farther down you go, they can start reaching for some obscure vocabulary. Which, if you stack that on with 20 questions and riddles, it makes it a pretty fun game to play as a group too. Not that it has actual online functionality yet, but if you have a couch or can stream it somewhere, you'll be in luck if you know a Wordle guy. Though if you're desperate, there is an in-game hint system you can turn on where the Cryptmaster will help you out. Plus, as you're trying to guess what the words are, he reacts to the wrong answers.
What? I? Look, you're a zombie. If something falls off, it falls off. Pork? Why are you talking about food?
As you're just trying to upgrade your party, you're running across new interactions. Then combat gets some more added onto it. The Master helps power you through a soul stone, and in combat, some of the earlier skills are free, but it'll eventually start costing you 1 soul per letter. Many of the methods it'll give you letters will also give you souls, but there are some extras like scraping bugs off the wall, or playing cards against some characters, which you can do a bit of deck building in. As you learn more skills, you figure out new combos and strategies to win with. You are held back by cooldown timers, so while it helps, it's not all about typing as fast as humanly possible, and the enemies could have abilities that gimp your usuals. You could come to a fight and realize that using a certain letter will empower your enemy, or they might have a shield that blocks it completely. And as they strike you back, your party loses letters of their names. If you don't heal up with a skill or going back to an altar, your party dies and goes back to a save point. There are other things you can discover that add on to the system, but it's all pretty straightforward. It is easy to understand, but you do have a lot of skills to consider. And some get extremely specific, like this will only work if the enemy has the letter C in their name, so you won't use those often. I almost wish skills like that did have some kind of prompt, because once you've figured out your own wombo combo, even if the enemy has a protection against it, you won't need to go around it too often. And while you can manually increase the number of letters you loot from an enemy in the options, it does seem like something that should scale up as the game goes on, because by the time I hit the end, I had barely unlocked half of the character's skills. There are tons to find, but it's obvious you don't actually need that many. Which is good, but I guess I do wish there was some kind of hard mode to see how crazy things could get. Even with that, because of all your options, it doesn't feel that repetitive. Combat is a core part of the game, but it's not all of it. It's more a constant drive of going, what the hell is coming next, and what else can this game react to? For reference, a friend of mine said that you could jack off to save. This was completely true. It's full of secrets with a light overarching story, but the moment-to-moment gameplay is what keeps you coming back to it. If anything, I wish the last 2 chapters of the game were longer, which does feel impressive to think when this game easily could have been a simpler gimmick that I wouldn't have cared to finish. So this is an easy recommend for me, and because of its tiny dev nature, I would highly recommend you leave a GOG or Steam review if you liked it. It's a game that deserves the boost and feels insanely refreshing. It felt like a nice vacation from some other mind-breaking games, but we'll get back on those next time.
I don't.
Do I think System Shock might go the way of Homeworld and be too focused around Shodan, like Karen was? Not really, actually. If it does continue, there are still things you could do with her character. Homeworld's scale felt too big for that kind of thing, and we saw where that went. Homeworld has a big universe that they keep smushing down. Who would throw a worse dinner party, Hayes or Halligan? I'll say Hayes. I don't want to eat his brand of human meat. Have I changed opinions on games I've reviewed before? And how? Some games like Necromunda and Sunless Skies definitely got improvements to make the core of the game feel a lot better. Live servicey ones can get better and worse in different ways, but most stuff I go back and play that hasn't changed, I haven't really shifted on unless I learned something new about them. Like how Fear 1 had tons of side character stuff that was cut, which makes a lot of sense. Why do I put a spotlight on sound? Mainly because a lot of people only bring it up if it's bad. Sound design does a lot of invisible lifting, and there are stinky games that do have great sound design. Plus, an amazing soundtrack is pretty much guaranteed to elevate any game. It's that simple.
I've unlocked the elevator for you. Good luck, I love you.